What would you do if the person you gave your whole life to betrayed you and walked away with someone else? In today's story, you'll see how betrayal doesn't always end the way cheaters expect. Sometimes, karma comes faster than they can imagine. This is the story of she left me for her lover, but I made her pay for everything. Get ready for betrayal, revenge, and the shocking twists you won't see coming. Welcome back to Cheating Stories 7. If you enjoy these dramatic tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's dive into the story. It was a Monday morning like any other. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, the newspaper spread in front of me, flipping lazily through the business section. The sun streamed through the blinds, casting a warm glow over the spotless counters and neatly arranged breakfast dishes. My wife, Vanessa, finished loading the dishwasher in silence. Then she sat across from me. "Ethan," she said softly, "can you put down the paper? I need to talk to you." I didn't look up. Not yet. I had a strange feeling I knew where this was going. She cleared her throat. "I'm leaving you," she said. "I want a divorce." I lowered the paper slowly, folded it carefully, and set it aside. I looked her in the eyes. "That all?" I asked flatly, reaching for the sports section. Her face tightened. "I'm serious, Ethan." "I know," I said, still flipping the page. "I've been waiting for this." Her brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" I looked up, calm, steady. "You've been emotionally gone for over a year, Vanessa. This is just the paperwork catching up." She opened her mouth to respond, but I stood up, grabbed my coffee, and walked to my home office. I retrieved a small envelope, a pen, and a worn, leather-bound notebook. Back in the kitchen, I sat down and wrote, "Marcus, thank you. You've done what I didn't have the heart to do myself. She's yours now. Best of luck." Then I smiled, pulled out a lottery ticket I had bought the night before, and slid it into the envelope with the note. On the back, I added, "Maybe this will help keep her satisfied so she won't cheat on you too. You'll need the luck." I sealed it, wrote his name on the front, and handed it to Vanessa. "When you see him," I said, "give him this." She stared at it, stunned. "You think I don't know?" I said. "Vanessa, just because I stayed silent doesn't mean I've been blind." She was speechless. I took the envelope back from her slowly. "On second thought, maybe I'll mail it myself. I don't trust you not to read it and throw it away." Then I took a long sip of coffee and smiled. Vanessa stared at the envelope in my hand like it might explode. "You knew," she whispered. I nodded slowly, calm as ever. For a while. She tried to hold onto her mask, composure, indifference, but I saw the cracks forming. "You're not even going to ask why?" "I stopped needing answers when I stopped caring," I replied, her voice raised a notch. "You don't get to just dismiss this like it's nothing." I folded my arms. "Oh, Vanessa, you already dismissed me over a year ago. You just didn't have the guts to say it out loud until now." She stood up from the chair, tense. "I'm not moving out. I'm not letting you stay here while you bring some woman into our home." I leaned back in my seat. "You're leaving, remember, your words, not mine." "I'll move out when I'm ready." "No," I said, standing. "You'll move out because this isn't your safe house anymore. This is where you lied, where you smiled in my face and crept behind my back. This house, it was built on trust, and you bulldozed it." I walked past her, poured fresh coffee into my travel mug, topped it off, and grabbed my keys. "Where are you going?" she asked, arms crossed. "To work," I said. "You know, the thing I've been doing every day while you were busy finding someone more exciting than your husband." I opened the door, paused, and glanced back. "Oh, and Vanessa." "What?" "Start packing." I closed the door behind me, stepped into the morning air, and for the first time in months, I felt light. Not because she was leaving, but because I wasn't holding it in anymore. As I pulled out of the driveway that morning, the envelope still sat on the passenger seat beside me. I could have mailed it, dropped it in a mailbox and forgotten about it. But something in me wanted more than that, not revenge, just clarity. After work, I stopped by a small bar downtown. I knew from a mutual friend that Marcus liked to grab a drink there after hours. And sure enough, there he was, same smug face, same cheap leather jacket, same posture like he owned the world. I took a seat 2 stools down, waited. He glanced my way, a beat, then recognition. Ethan, Marcus, a long silence. Then I slid the envelope across the bar. He hesitated. What's this? A thank you note and a gift. He didn't open it, just looked at me warily. I know you and Vanessa have been seeing each other, I said. I knew a long time ago. He blinked. Then why? Because it didn't matter. I interrupted. Not in the way you think. You didn't break me. You set me free. He opened the envelope, read the note, saw the lottery ticket. I could tell he didn't know whether to laugh or be insulted. Is this legit? Completely. I bought it the night before she left me. Figured maybe the universe wanted to give someone a shot at happiness. He stared at the ticket. Why give this to me? Because now you get the full experience. The charm, the lies, the mood swings, the gaslighting. Maybe money will help keep her satisfied for a while, maybe not. He shifted in his seat, uncomfortable. I stood up, tossed a few bills on the bar for my drink, and turned to go. Before I left, I added, she left me thinking she destroyed something. I smiled, but she didn't realize she handed me the match. The morning after our kitchen showdown, I moved fast. First stop, the bank. I closed our joint checking and savings accounts, emptied the safe deposit box. Not a cent left behind. The teller looked at me with raised eyebrows but said nothing. Then I drove across town and opened brand new accounts in my name only. Next came the credit cards. I canceled all our joint accounts and had new ones issued solely to me. Vanessa wouldn't know it yet, but her plastic privileges were officially revoked. By noon, I had cut off every financial tether she could pull. Afterward, I went back to work and focused on what I was best at, getting ahead. I stayed late, met a few business partners, had dinner and a whiskey with my executive assistant, Claire. I heard you're single again, she said over drinks. Apparently so, I replied, watching the ice melt in my glass. She grinned. Remember when I brought my sister Sophie to that backyard party? She had such a crush on you. I laughed. I do remember, told you not to mention it to Vanessa. She got jealous if I so much as blinked too slow at a waitress. Claire leaned closer. Well, screw Sophie, I'm first in line now. I raised an eyebrow. That's so? I'm serious, Ethan, she said. I've seen the way you work, the way you carry yourself. I don't want your pity, I want your time. I hesitated. You might not like what you find. This isn't a clean break, it's a tactical withdrawal. She cheated. I've known for over a year. I stayed quiet, kept the house stable, let her think I didn't notice. Claire blinked. A year, you just lived with it? I nodded. What was I supposed to do? In this state, no-fault divorce means everything gets split. I'd lose the house, my garage, the woodworking shop, hell, maybe even the dog. And now? I said she wants out, and I'm letting her walk straight into a trap she never saw coming. Claire smirked. That's the coldest, smartest thing I've ever heard. I finished my drink. You still want first place? She smiled. More than ever. Claire wasn't just another rebound. She was calculated timing in high heels. We had worked together for nearly a decade. She started as a secretary, sharp, organized, quietly ambitious. Over time, she earned every promotion. She knew how I liked my files, how I ran my meetings, and how to shut down a boardroom with one glance. But until Vanessa said the words, I want a divorce, I never really looked at Claire. Now I couldn't stop. That Friday, she called in sick, but texted me later in the afternoon. Painting the room that could become our future nursery, want to come inspect the color. Subtle wasn't her style anymore. That weekend we went out, dinner, dancing, no pretense. She didn't ask questions about Vanessa, didn't prod me for emotional confessions. She just made me laugh, genuinely laugh for the first time in months. At the end of the night, she leaned in and whispered, "This isn't just about revenge for you, you're building something better." I stared at her for a long second. She was right. Vanessa had taken years from me, years where I played the stable husband, the loyal provider, while she drifted between girls' nights and secret motel check-ins. And I had played along quietly, strategically. But Claire, she wasn't playing games. She was building a new battlefield, one where I made the rules, and she was more than willing to fight beside me. That Sunday, we had a quiet picnic in a park just outside the city. No drama, no masks. Just two people who had seen too much and still wanted something real. As we watched a young couple push their twin babies in a stroller, Claire leaned her head against my shoulder. "I never thought I'd want this," she said. "What changed?" You, she answered. You didn't flinch when everything fell apart. You stood taller. I smiled. I was already free the day she said she was leaving. She just didn't know it yet. Claire reached for my hand. Let's make her regret it. I didn't say anything. I just tightened my fingers around hers. That Sunday night, as I lay in bed next to an empty pillow that used to belong to Vanessa, memories began unraveling like thread. Claire was asleep in the guest room. I could hear the faint rhythm of her breathing through the walls, but I wasn't tired. I was thinking about her, about Vanessa, and the patterns I should have seen sooner. This wasn't the first time she had grown distant, withdrawn, restless. Over our 10-year marriage, there were 4 times I could remember her changing, becoming colder, dressing better, smiling at her phone more than at me. Each time I chalked it up to hormones, stress, mood swings, life, but now it all made sense. Tyrone, her current lover, was just the latest in a long line, and I suspected the line stretched further back than I ever wanted to admit. I remembered one business trip years ago, 3 days out of town. When I came home, the sheets had been washed, but the guest bathroom smelled like aftershave that wasn't mine. Or that time she got lost driving back from yoga and her phone was suddenly dead for 5 hours. I didn't question her then because I trusted her, because I loved her, because I was too proud or too blind to believe my wife could be the type to betray. But she was, and maybe she always had been. I turned onto my side, stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly overhead and let the truth settle in. Vanessa didn't just fall out of love with me. She fell in love with betraying me, and the only mistake I had made was giving her the benefit of the doubt for too damn long. Most people think revenge is loud, dramatic, explosive, but my revenge started the day I decided to do nothing. I found out about Tyrone over a year ago. A buddy from the gym saw Vanessa walking into a motel with him and gave me a heads up. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream or pack a bag. I hired a private investigator. He followed her for a week, brought me pictures, video, times, room numbers, proof, everything I needed. I sat with that evidence in a drawer for months. Why? Because I knew how the system worked. We lived in a no-fault state. If I filed too soon, she'd get half of everything, half the house, half the savings, maybe even the hot tub and the woodworking shed I built with my bare hands. So I waited. I let her believe I was clueless. I let her cook dinner, do the laundry, play perfect wife. I let her lie, thinking I was buying every word. I let her build her illusion. And while she was building her fantasy life with Tyrone, I was building my escape. I started separating finances, secretly moved assets, collected documents, stashed money in a separate account, bought lottery tickets and smiled every time she rolled her eyes at them. All while she was getting bolder, thinking I was stupid, weak, indifferent. But I wasn't any of those things. I was patient. And when she finally said, "I want a divorce," she thought she was in control. What she didn't know was, she was walking right into the plan I had already written. By Monday morning, the plan moved into phase 2. I picked up the phone and called Daniel. We'd been friends since 3rd grade. He was the kind of guy who brought whiskey to a breakup and a briefcase to a war. Lucky for me, he specialized in exactly what I needed, divorce law. When he picked up, I didn't waste time. "I'm ready to file." He paused. "Vanessa, she asked for divorce. I'm giving her exactly what she wants." "And the restraining order you mentioned?" "Yeah, I want her served at work, in public, with the full parade." Daniel didn't ask why. He didn't need to. We met that afternoon in his office. I handed him a folder with the investigator's report, a timeline of Vanessa's movements, copies of our financial records, and a notarized statement about her threats. I even threw in the fake one. "If you cause any problems, Tyrone will straighten you out." Daniel raised an eyebrow but didn't flinch. "Are you serious about the restraining order?" he asked. "Dead serious. You know there'll be a hearing within 10 days. You'll need actual justification." I leaned back. "Trust me, she'll give it to us." By lunchtime, I had signed the divorce petition, requested temporary possession of the house, and added a clause that would freeze our joint assets. That night, I called a locksmith, booked the appointment for the same day Vanessa would be served. I wanted the locks changed before she could even step out of her office. She thought she was leaving me. But by the time she got home, she'd realize I had already left her in every way that mattered. When I got home that night, Vanessa was still there, sitting at the kitchen table like nothing had changed, papers scattered around her, phone in hand, wine half full, like she still belonged there. "I thought you'd be gone," I said, walking past her toward the fridge. "This is my house too, Ethan," she replied without looking up. "I'm not leaving just because you're throwing a tantrum." I popped open a beer, took a long drink, and leaned against the counter. "I'm not throwing anything. You asked for divorce," I agreed. "That means it's time to go." She turned, eyes narrowing. "You think I'm just going to walk away and let you bring your little office toy into our home?" "You already brought your toy in, Vanessa," I said flatly. "I just never caught him on the couch." She stood, crossing her arms. "I'm not moving out. If you don't like my company, you can leave." "Not a chance," I replied. "This house is mine. I built the deck. I installed the garage shelving. I fixed every leaky pipe and squeaky door. You cheated. You wanted out, so get out." Her lip curled. "You can't kick me out. You'll see," I said, already knowing the restraining order was in motion. We stared at each other for a few long seconds. Then I turned and walked away, taking my beer upstairs. I locked the bedroom door behind me, not because I was scared, but because I was done. Done sharing, done pretending. She had started this war, but now we were on my battlefield. And tomorrow, she'd see what happens when you underestimate the man you swore you could destroy. By the next morning, the dynamic in the house had changed completely. Vanessa was still there, but she wasn't with me. We crossed paths in the hallway, the kitchen, the living room, but there were no words, no glances, just silence and walls that hadn't existed before. She tried to hold ground. "I'm staying in the master bedroom," she announced that afternoon, hands on hips. I looked up from my laptop. "No, you're not. I have every right to. You lost that right when you gave that bed to someone else." Her jaw clenched. "You can use the spare room," I continued. "And don't touch anything that's not yours. If you want to eat, cook for yourself. If you need laundry done, figure it out." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her anymore. Good, because he didn't recognize her either. The woman I married was long gone. In her place was someone I didn't love, didn't trust, and didn't want anywhere near my future. "I still can't believe how cold you are," she muttered as she walked away. I didn't reply. I didn't owe her warmth. That night I sat in the garage with a beer in one hand and a pencil in the other, sketching out plans for a new workbench. It was something I had wanted to build for months, but never had the mental space. Now I did. The house might have still had her shadow, but it was already mine again, not because she left, but because I took it back. One room, one rule, one silent victory at a time. By Thursday morning, Daniel had filed everything. Divorce petition, asset freeze, restraining order request, and Vanessa still playing house like she didn't believe I had the guts to go through with it. But I wasn't trying to scare her. I was trying to get her out legally, so I gave the judge a reason. I told Daniel, "Add this to the filing." Vanessa told me that if I caused trouble, Marcus would straighten me out. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "That true?" "Not a word of it," I said. "But we both know she'll explode the second she's served, and I want the law already on my side when she does." He smirked. Smart man. The hearing for the temporary restraining order was set for next week, but that didn't matter. A judge signed the initial order that morning, enough to keep her away from the house for 10 days. We agreed she'd be served at work. 10:00 a.m. sharp. I called a locksmith and told him to be on standby. I went home early, packed all her things into boxes, and moved them into the garage. I labeled everything, didn't break a single dish. I didn't need chaos, I needed proof of control. At 10:15 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Daniel, she's been served." I called the locksmith. By 11:00 a.m., the locks were changed. And by 11:15, Vanessa's car screeched into the driveway. She tried the door. It didn't open. She rang the bell. I didn't answer. Then she saw the massive cardboard sign taped to the garage door. "Vanessa, all your things are here. Good luck." She stood there for a long time, not crying, not yelling, just processing. I watched through the upstairs window, invisible behind the blinds. It wasn't about cruelty. It was about closure, and she had just received it in full. I expected anger. What I didn't expect was the meltdown. The next day I came home after work to find the kitchen in ruins. Plates shattered, Glasses broken, drawer contents dumped onto the floor, lamps overturned. And then the piece de resistance, my clothes, all of them, dragged from my closet into a giant pile on the living room floor, soaked in urine. I stood there for a second, then I smiled. Why? Because I had seen everything, live from the security cameras I had installed 2 days prior. Full audio, full video, time-stamped, crystal clear. Vanessa had broken in through the garage using the old code, one I purposely didn't change. I wanted her to make this mistake, and she did. I called Daniel and sent him the footage. He forwarded it to the police. Within the hour, officers were at my home documenting the damage and taking photos. That same evening, they walked into Vanessa's office and arrested her in front of her colleagues. Booked, fingerprinted, mugshotted. She was charged with violating a restraining order, willful destruction of private property, criminal trespassing. A hearing was scheduled within 72 hours. That weekend, while she was out on bail, I went out with Claire again. Dinner, drinks, dancing, and no drama. By Monday, we had the court date for the restraining order. Vanessa came in smug, probably thinking she'd charm the judge. Then I played the footage. She watched herself scream into the void, smash her way through the kitchen, pull down my clothes, squat. The courtroom was silent. Even the judge looked uncomfortable. He banged the gavel and made the restraining order permanent. She was ordered to pay for the damages, dry cleaning, cleaning the bedroom, replacing everything she broke. She had 10 days to comply or face contempt of court, and just to twist the knife. I hired the most expensive cleaning crew in the city. She paid every cent. But for once, it wasn't about the money. It was about making her accountable in public, in court, and in front of the law. After the hearing, I went home to a quiet, clean house. No more slammed doors, no more passive-aggressive sighs, no more walking on eggshells in my own kitchen. It was peaceful. That Friday, Claire and I went out again. Nothing fancy, just dinner at our favorite sushi spot, a long walk along the pier, and a bottle of wine on the deck afterward. This time, it wasn't about distraction. It was about something real. She leaned across the table, her fingers wrapped around a glass of rosé, and asked, "Do you still think about her?" I paused. "Yes," I said honestly, "but not the way I used to." Claire nodded, not offended. She never needed perfect answers, only honest ones. "Is it weird," she asked, "us starting something while everything else is still ending?" I looked at her. "No," I said, "because I'm not looking for a replacement. I'm just looking forward." She smiled. "That's good, because I'm not here to fix you, Ethan. I'm here to build something with you." I reached for her hand across the table. "Then let's start small," I said. "No promises, just good moments." And we did. That weekend, we went to the farmer's market, bought flowers neither of us needed, cooked a terrible pasta dish together, laughed over burned garlic bread, fell asleep watching a documentary we never finished. No drama, no games, just peace. It wasn't flashy. But after everything I'd been through, it felt revolutionary. It had been 8 months since the divorce was finalized. I was sitting at the Hilton's rooftop bar on a cloudy Thursday, nursing a steak sandwich and a beer when someone sat down on the stool beside me. "Can I buy you a drink?" I turned, and there he was, Marcus, older than I remembered, or maybe just more tired. He didn't look smug anymore. "Sure," I said coolly. "Beer's fine." He signaled to the bartender. We sat in silence for a moment, the clink of glasses and low hum of conversation filling the air. When the drinks came, he took a sip, stared at the label, and began peeling it, bit by bit, into a neat little pile on the bar. "I didn't mean to screw things up for you," he said, eyes still down. "Sure you didn't." He winced. "Look, the night I met Vanessa, she wasn't wearing a ring, said she lived with her sick mother, couldn't stay out long, she didn't act married. I didn't respond. She told me you were abusive," he continued. "Said you threatened to kill her if she ever left, said you'd come after anyone she was with." I exhaled slowly. "She was good at that," I said, twisting truth into something she could hide behind. "I didn't believe her, not after I got your letter." He paused, then added, "I sat on it for a week. When I confronted her, she cried, said she hated you but couldn't explain why she'd stayed." He took another sip, swallowed hard. "I let her move in for a while, but when she started talking about marriage, I ended it, told her I didn't do long-term with cheaters." I finally looked at him. Why tell me all this now? He pulled something from his jacket and slid it across the bar, a cashier's check. This is your half, he said. That lottery ticket you gave me, it hit. I stared at the check. The amount was substantial. You waited this long to give it to me. I didn't want you to have to split it in the divorce, he said simply. Whatever happened between us, she caused it, not you. I nodded, pocketed the check, and raised my glass. To endings, I said. Marcus clinked his glass against mine. To second chances, he replied. Then he stood up, nodded once, and walked away. And just like that, the last piece of the past left the room. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table, same spot where it all began, with the check in front of me. It was surreal. That lottery ticket I had tossed into an envelope with a sarcastic note. The one I meant as a jab, a joke, maybe even a curse. It won, and Marcus, of all people, gave me half. I turned the check over in my hand, reading the numbers again. It was enough to start fresh, travel the world, or fund a new business if I wanted. But more than the money, it was the symbolism that hit me. I had bet on a cheater, she lost, and somehow I still won. I used to think that revenge meant watching someone else burn, but sitting there, coffee in hand, future wide open, I realized something deeper. Revenge wasn't fire, it was freedom. Vanessa didn't just walk out of my life, she cleared the space for something better. And fate, irony, or whatever cruelly poetic force was out there. It gave me a check to seal it. I smiled, grabbed my phone, and texted Claire. How do you feel about a long vacation and a short engagement? A minute later, she replied, only if I get to pick the island and the color of the nursery. A few weeks later, Claire and I were back at that same rooftop bar where this new chapter had begun. The sun was setting, her wine glass untouched, my beer going warm. She hadn't said much all evening until now. I have something to tell you, she said, eyes flicking up to meet mine. I leaned forward. What's on your mind? She took a breath, steady but nervous. Then she placed a small white envelope on the table. For a moment, my heart jumped. Another envelope, another secret. But this time, it was something entirely different. Inside was a sonogram photo. My eyes froze, my brain stalled. Claire smiled softly, tenderly. You're going to be a father. I stared at the blurry black and white image. After everything I'd been through, after all the lies, betrayals, fake realities I had built around 4 children who weren't mine. Now finally this one was. I didn't cry, I didn't speak. I just nodded, gripped her hand, and whispered, I'll get it right this time. She squeezed back. I know you will. The pain of the past didn't vanish, but it shifted. It became fuel, not fire. A lesson, not a wound. And this time I wasn't walking into a trap. I was walking into a future I chose, with someone who chose me back, and that made all the difference. And so that was the end of the story. She left me for her lover, but I made her pay for everything. In the end, betrayal never comes without a price, and sometimes the cheater pays far more than they ever imagined. What about you? If you were in Ethan's shoes, would you have stayed silent and planned revenge, or walked away from the start? Let us know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Cheating Stories 7, and share it with someone who might need to hear this lesson. Until next time, remember, betrayal always comes with consequences.